What better Christmas gift you can give yourself than Czech citizenship, than a Czech passport? But if you want to make it for this Christmas, you should have applied 2 years ago. But in today's video, I will explain everything related to obtaining Czech citizenship, obtaining Czech citizenship, and all the different ways to do it. But I will primarily focus on the most common group of foreigners we deal with, and those are people who are or who have been living in the Czech Republic for long enough to qualify for the permanent residency. For the citizenship this way. I will probably need more coffee because it's gonna be a long topic. So guys, for those of you who are watching live, thank you for being here. If you have any questions related to obtaining Czech citizenship, please ask them in the chat. If you're watching the recording, thank you as well, and you can always comment and I'll try to answer there as well. So let's first go briefly through the different ways of obtaining Czech citizenship, because there are actually quite a few. So I'll just tell you a bit about each of them just very briefly, and then we'll go into the main topic, which will be obtaining Czech citizenship by granting. So first way to obtain Czech citizenship is Czech citizenship by birth. Obviously, if one of your parents is Czech and ideally if the mother is Czech, let's say, then you always get the Czech citizenship. So maybe one thing to mention, kids do not automatically get citizenship in the Czech Republic if they are born here by just the fact they are born here. But if one of the parents is, then they can get citizenship kind of easily. It's obviously way easier if the mother is a Czech citizen, because if the father is not a Czech citizen, or if the father is a Czech citizen, there might need to be the DNA test done, all that. So it's a bit more complicated, but generally if you are a child born to a Czech parent, then you get Czech citizenship. So that's the easy, but you cannot really choose this way. Then Czech citizenship by establishing paternity, that's what I was talking about. So if the mother is Czech, you get it automatically. If the father is Czech, you kind of need to establish that you are actually, or that it's actually a Czech child, but that can be done. Czech citizenship by adoption, kind of obvious. Fun one is Czech citizenship by being found at the territory of the Czech Republic. So that if there is a child that is found in the Czech Republic and it's below some age, that child can also get Czech citizenship. Not the best or not the most ideal way of getting Czech citizenship, but that's possible. Czech citizenship by granting, that's the main topic I will be talking about. That's if you have been living here for long enough to get the citizenship. And Czech citizenship by declaration, that's kind of the ancestry way of doing it. And then Czech citizenship in connection with being entrusted to institutional foster or other forms of alternative care. That's again for kids that go to foster homes and similar process. You could potentially also get citizenship by being significant enough for the Czech Republic, like being a famous actor. That's very significant. But that would be also either by granting or by declaration. Granting. Anyway, so now let's look into the most common way, and that's obtaining Czech citizenship by granting. Let's see if we have any questions. Ahoj šéfe, jak se máš? Jak si domluvit schůzku na vízum v Dubaji? That's kind of weird, guys, because I think that YouTube automatically translates your comments or your messages into Czech, which is super weird because I guess you're not speaking Czech to me. So how to get an appointment in Dubai? That's not related to this topic at all. Do you expect any changes to the language exam, or do you think it will stay at B1? Yeah, I don't expect any changes there or any significant changes, but you never know, because that's usually, this is not like really announced in advance. There would have to be like a change in the political situation where they would just decide that it's not enough to speak B1. But actually one thing is that a lot of foreigners who apply for the Czech citizenship, and even if they have the exam, they don't actually really speak Czech, and that might be a problem. So maybe, but I'm not aware of anything that should be happening soon. So let's go through the main requirements, and then I will get to your question, Arash Morati, but I want to continue with the topic and then like just include the questions there. So the main qualification criteria is that you must have a permanent residence permit. Does not really matter, or it can matter how long you have it, but the main thing is you must have a permanent residence permit. If you don't have a permanent residence permit, you cannot get a citizenship this way. And now, you can get Czech citizenship after 10 years of living here. And then the permanent residence permit does not really matter where you have it, as long as you have it. So even if you've been here for 9 years as a student, that would not work. So 10 years as a student, then you get a permanent residency, and then you've passed the 10 years and you have permanent residency, you can immediately apply for Czech citizenship. Or if you had like the employee card for 8 years, then you get the permanent residency, then you can just have 2 years of permanent residency and apply for citizenship, because it's 10 years as long as you have permanent residency when you're applying for citizenship. You could also potentially apply after 5 years of having permanent residency if you're a non-EU citizen, which usually adds up to 10 years anyway, but it's either 10 years in total and having a permanent residency, or 5 years of permanent residency. And if you're an EU citizen, you can have the permanent residency just for 3 years and still qualify for the Czech citizenship. So these are the main the one main qualification criteria. Before we get into the documentation, which is pretty extensive, there is a lot you need to prove. This is the main qualification criteria where you know if you even like already qualify or not. So let's now see some of the questions, and then we'll go through the process. So let's see. That sucks that it's translating it into Czech, because it's like it makes my work more complicated. Hello, I have a question. My fiance is Czech citizen. I'm getting visit visa for her for 1 month. Okay, so this is not related to the Czech citizenship, so I will not be answering that. Ahoj, Jano. I'm living in the Czech Republic for the last 8 years. Now I have PR for the last year. Is there a way to apply for citizenship earlier than after 10 years? I studied in the Czech Republic. Not really, unless you are an EU citizen who could potentially apply after 3 years of having permanent residency. There are always some kind of exceptions, but usually for the duration of your stay, would be difficult to prove that you should get an exception, in my opinion. So let me take you through the process and through the required documents and steps, so you know what else you will need to get. One thing you should kind of keep in mind is that the whole process will very likely take anything in between 1 and 2 years, because collection of the documents will take you months generally. It's technically possible to have it done within a few weeks, but usually from our experience, that's not really a priority for people when they're applying for citizenship. So we start strong, and then there is always like a couple weeks of like nothing happening on the side of the client, because they just don't have time for that. They have the PR for unlimited period of time, so they cannot really they are not pressured to do anything. So usually takes months to get all the documents prepared. And then once you submit the application, the ministry officially has 6 months or 180 days to make the decision, plus the first month of the town hall, which makes their own, I will get back to it, but that they make their own like assessment of your case. But usually it takes at least around a year, potentially even longer, depending on your situation, your nationality, how busy the ministry is, all that. So count with at least 1 to 2 years to get the Czech citizenship this way. It's not an easy and short process. So, couple steps. Step number 1, collect all the necessary documents. And now you're up for some fun. So let's start with the documentation needed for the citizenship application. First, you need to write a written request, basically explaining why you want to get Czech citizenship. There is no like specific form how you should do it. There is no real structure for that. It's kind of up to you, and it's a free form, but you need to provide some significant reasons to get Czech citizenship. You should explain why you want to get it. The better you word it, the better for you. Then the second thing of a similar nature is a written CV. And that's not a CV as you can imagine from like job interviews, where you have like January 2020 to January 2022, I worked for SAP. No, it's kind of also like a free form where the ministry basically wants to see your history in the Czech Republic, not necessarily from the perspective of visas, because they have it in the system, but kind of like I came to the Czech Republic in 2009. I studied this university. During my school or during my studies, I took part in these programs, or like, because that's related to other things. They want to see that you are integrated into the society, so it's good to mention it. So I was part of this club, or I was doing this and that and that. Then I found my first job and I switched to this, and alongside with that, I was also doing this, which is beneficial for Czech Republic, blah, blah, blah. And you basically describe the whole life of yourself in the Czech Republic in kind of these simple kind of timeline-y descriptions. Then one of the things you definitely need to have is your birth certificate, and then anything related to that which might be useful for the application. So for example, if you are married to a Czech citizen or an EU citizen, have the marriage certificate. If you have Czech kids, have their birth certificate. If you were married to a Czech citizen, now you're divorced, have the marriage certificate, have the divorce certificate. Anything that might help you for the application or with the application, have it ready. Then criminal records. Technically, if you've been living here for more than 2 years, then you don't really need a criminal check from the country of origin, but you still technically need criminal checks from all the countries where you have lived longer than 6 months in the last 10 years. So let's say if you spend 6 months in Cyprus, or you spend 2 years in Spain or whatever, you will need to provide criminal checks from those countries as well. Czech language and Czech kind of history and politics and all that knowledge exams. You don't have to take those if you are below 15. So if you're a child applying for citizenship, you don't have to take the exam. And if you're above 65, you don't have to do that either. There are some other exceptions. For example, if you studied for more than 3 years in Czech language. So let's say you came here as a child and you picked up Czech very swiftly and you studied a high school completely in Czech language, then you can use that and you don't have to pass these exams. But in general, you have to pass the exam if you're between 15 and 65 years of age. The level of Czech you need to pass at this point is B1. And as someone asked, I don't think it will go significantly higher anytime soon, but it kind of depends on the political mood, so it's always difficult to estimate. Then proof of education, that's kind of two things. One, if you came here already as an adult and like studied, educated adult, then it's good to show that, okay, even if your diploma is not from the Czech Republic, but you have master's or you have PhD, it might be good to use it because it will give your application credibility. You know, if you have just primary school and nothing else, and then you have like 2 PhDs, potentially the chances of getting the citizenship might be influenced by that. But if you have, for example, a Czech diploma, that will be even better because it shows better integration potentially into the Czech society. It can give you some plus points there as well. One thing that's, again, just, I don't know why YouTube does it. They just translate all the questions into Czech for some reason. So I have to just, okay, for Czech citizenship, after we apply for durable partnership, how long does it take, or I'm able to get the PR after that? So I'm talking about the citizenship now. So I've explained the rules. For the PR, there are some rules as well. Ideally, get in touch via email or via the form in my bio. And I would say the same applies to the unknown 5294. I'll be happy to tell you more about the other visa and all the like service description and price and all that. But please just get in touch through the link in my bio, or just go to movetoprague.com and fill in any of the forms, or send us an email, because I do topical live streams. So now during this live stream, I primarily answer questions related to the topic. So in this case, Czech citizenship. But of course, I'll be happy to answer your questions about the other visa as well, just kind of not during the live stream. So next on the list, proof of actually living in the Czech Republic / proofs of your travels. Because generally, there are a couple things that are related to that, but you need to prove that you've been actually living in the Czech Republic and or how much you've been traveling to other countries. Because, for example, with the Czech PR, if you are a non-EU citizen, you can live in other EU countries for up to 6 years and still keep the Czech permanent residency. But if you lived for 5 years in Italy and then you apply for Czech citizenship, that's probably not gonna give you much of like chance to get it, because it does not really show your interest in the Czech Republic and your integration into the Czech society. So that's part of it, that they want to see like if you've been really living in the Czech Republic, but that might also indicate other things, because for getting Czech citizenship, it's not only about meeting the requirements, but they will also check you against terrorist databases or any weird kind of behavior. So if you only travel to some like dangerous countries, for example, or you meet with some specific type of people, that might also influence the application. So they want to see where you travel, and it also kind of, they will see your travels as well to some extent. So it's kind of also showing if you are like open with them and if you're real with them, or if you're trying to hide some of the travels or something like that. So there are a couple of reasons behind it, but basically they want to see that you live here and or how much you travel outside. This is so weird. The comments are so weird, and especially in Czech language, so weird. Guys, if you know if I can turn it off, these like automatic translations. It started every time I do live stream, there is something new on YouTube, and that's just, I don't like it. So this is weird as well. And someone in Czech says, why did you slap my little sister, my baby sister? What the fuck? I have no idea what's going on here. Anyway, let's go. Let's continue. So next, I have some notes here, and this was the first page of requirements. We have another page of requirements here now. So, proof of your income for the last 3 years. It's a bit different than for the permanent residency, for example, because for the permanent residency and other types of long-term residency, for example, you need to prove that you've been making enough money on monthly basis, and enough, there is some number you need to be making. It's not the same for everyone, because it depends on how much you pay for your rent and how many people are in the household, all that, but there is some number you need to meet at some point. That's not the same for Czech citizenship. officially they're not looking for some specific number. So you don't need to be making above some threshold, but it must make some sense. So for example, if your rent is 50,000 crowns, but you officially declare 30,000 crowns of income, that will be kind of weird, and they could dig into that, and they could request some additional documentation. Potentially it might be problematic for the application. So basically they are trying to see if you're not a burden, and you will not be a burden to the Czech society, to the government, to the benefits, all that. And if you're making money, and roughly how much, and if it's enough to cover your daily expenses. Because again, it might be suspicious. If you say, hey, my net income is 30,000 crowns, and then you drive 2 Porsches, might be a reason to investigate you more, let's put it this way. Then proof of no debts. That goes similarly as if you apply for the business residence permit. So you need to have proof of no debts from tax office, social security, healthcare, customs, and then you also need to kind of prove that you don't get any benefits from the government, and if you did get any benefits or any support, like unemployment support or child support or stuff like that, how much and for how long you've been getting those. Again, it does not necessarily mean that if you had like unemployment support for 3 months, that it disqualifies you from getting the Czech citizenship. No, but if you've been getting support for the last 5 years, that potentially might. And then one of the big ones is that you need to prove that you've been integrated into Czech society, which there is no specific documentation you need to submit. It's kind of up to you to convince the ministry that you are really integrated, but there are some things that help, there are some things that don't help. So, for example, let's say you have a Czech wife, you have Czech kids, you own a flat in the Czech Republic, you own a company in the Czech Republic, you play football or soccer for your local like village club or Prague 15 or whatever. Just don't mean like Sparta or Slavia, like the big clubs, but for some like local, and you're active in what's happening in your wherever you live, the part of Prague or the village or the city where you live. So you go to the different demonstrations, or one of our clients is organizing some of the markets in Prague. So that shows that you are interested in the society, that you actually like are integrated. On the other hand, let's imagine that you're single, no wife, no kid or husband, whatever. No kids, you don't own any property, you don't own any business, you don't go out, you just like sit at home, play games, and if you have some friends, those are all foreigners. Probably it does not really show that you are really integrated into the society. And the same thing if you lived for 5 years in Spain, or if you spent the last 3 years in Germany, or stuff like that. What I was talking about before when talking about traveling, that also does not really show that you are that much interested into living like in the Czech Republic, and that you are that much integrated into the Czech society. Dobrý den, jaká je kvóta? Hello, what's the basic quota of getting a živno visa for teaching English? I want to apply in Europe. Nick Torres, I would love to answer it. I'm just doing topical live streams, and I answer only topical questions. So if you get in touch either through the link in my bio or just go to movetoprague.com and you ask us there, I'll be happy to answer everything. We'll help you with all the documentation, get you an appointment at the Czech embassy, prepare you for the interview, explain everything. We can do all that. I just cannot really answer it now because this is a live stream about Czech citizenship, and I only answer questions regarding that. But get in touch, and I'll be happy to speak with you tomorrow or after the holidays, and happy to explain everything. Now, the last thing, additional documentation needed for the citizenship application. That kind of depends on your situation. That depends what you can provide, which will help you with the application. So you generally also need to provide that you have somewhere to live, so either lease agreement or ownership of a property, or sometimes you need to provide payments to the social security system, healthcare system. If you have a trade license, it might be good to show it as well, and especially if you're doing something that shows your integration or that you are trying to integrate yourself or others to the society. So then it depends on what exactly is your situation, and for that it's best to just discuss it with us. We can sit, talk, and see how strong your application is and what would be the best approach. So that was step number 1, collecting all the documents required for the citizenship application. Step number 2 is actually submitting it. And the submission, although the decision will be made by the Ministry of the Interior, you don't submit the Czech citizenship application to the Ministry of the Interior. You generally submit it to your local town hall, depending on where you live. So if you live in Prague 5, you submit it to the town hall, městský úřad or městská část of Prague 5. Sorry, I've been talking for too long. Yeah, so you basically go there within their opening hours, take the number. You can also usually go there before you actually submit the application and speak with them, because they, depending on where you apply, they might require some additional documentation. Also, one thing usually is that different parts of Prague or different places where you apply, they also have their own citizenship questionnaires, and some of them even prefer if you fill it in when you're submitting the application. But in my opinion, it's not really great, because we've done it with some clients and it can be pretty stressful, because usually the questionnaire is a couple pages, like 5 pages full of questions, and the questions are your mom's maiden name, date of birth of your mom, date of birth of your father. And of course, if you know these things, great, it just takes time to fill it all in. But if you don't know those, like, will you be calling your mom, or will you be looking at Facebook to see if you find it there? It's better to prepare it in advance. But the point is that different places where you apply might have different requirements and also some additional documentation. But the point to submit it at the local town hall is that they will also conduct their own search, and they will conduct their own investigation of you as a person in regards to the part of the city or the village or wherever you live. So they will generally look at your contribution. So if you, for example, have to pay for the garbage disposal, if you've been paying, if you don't have any debts there, if you don't have any fines from them because you're disturbing the neighborhood or something like that, so they will be looking into all that. Plus, for example, if you have a dog, so if you're paying the yearly fees for the dog, and all these kind of all these kind of things related to the local town hall. And then they usually have the application for up to 30 days, and then they send the whole file to the Ministry of the Interior. And then the Ministry of the Interior can request some additional documentation, potentially could invite you for some additional interview, or they just do whatever they do and you just wait. Technically, if it's been taken and you have to pay 2,000 crowns admin fee. I forgot that. But then, if you've been waiting for more than 180 days from when the ministry received your file, you can potentially do a similar thing as with any other type of visa or residence permit, that you can send them a letter requesting speedy processing, but it kind of depends. Generally, I would say it works, but we don't always recommend it, because it depends on the case and how strong the case was. It depends what time of the year it is, because they might request the latest tax return, and if the latest tax return is not really great, you maybe don't want to push them and like create some tension. On the other hand, you might want to push them before you do the taxes because you know that the taxes will not be great. So it kind of depends on the situation. Sometimes it makes sense to send them a letter, sometimes it doesn't, but that's individual. We always discuss it individually. And one more thing is that depending on the officer you meet, they might force you to speak Czech with them when you're submitting the application, because you should have passed the B1 exam. So sometimes they test it, and anyway, the official language of the whole process is Czech. So I've seen it a couple times where they actually wanted our client to speak Czech with them when we were submitting the application. Of course, we are there with you if you go through us, so we can help and we can like support you there. But sometimes they told us like, now he will speak. You shut up, he will speak. And they like grilled the client for this. So be ready for that as well, especially if your Czech might not be that great because you passed the exam like 5 years ago, and since then you haven't spoken it properly. So anyway, that was kind of the submission waiting. They were steps 2 and 3. Step 4 is what happens after you get the decision. So obviously you can get denied because there is no legal right for anyone to get Czech citizenship. And then you can submit an appeal and you can like try to fight it. We have no, like the disclaimer, we have no experience with that because so far, all the applications we've submitted were approved, so we don't have an experience with that. But if that happened, we have lawyers who can represent you for the appeal. If the appeal is not successful, or if you don't want to appeal, you can just wait a couple years and submit the application again. So that's the negative outcome. The positive outcome is that you get approved, and then there are a couple steps you need to take. Usually it works the way that someone from the town hall will call you, hey, you've been approved, when can you come do the oath? The oath is basically that you usually go not alone, there are usually more people at the same time, and you go to the town hall and they officially read you the oath, and you repeat it, and you swear that you will be a good citizen and that you will be following the constitution, all that. And after that, they will give you the certificate of Czech citizenship, and from then on, you're officially a Czech citizen. Then you have to get the Czech ID, the občanka, občanský průkaz, and or your passport if you want to have one. And that's generally it. Easy 33 minutes of explaining. And then in some other videos, I will do the citizenship application by ancestry. So I will talk more about it as well, but this time it was just about the granting part of the citizenship application, and even that just took over 30 minutes. So guys, if you have any questions related to Czech citizenship, feel free to ask now. If not, then of course you can contact me through the link in my bio or through our general website, movetoprague.com. And you can also become a joiner, and I will be doing a live Q&A for joiners only now. So when I finish this live stream, I will immediately go to the joiner section and I will do live Q&As there where you can ask me anything, and I will be answering any questions there. Now, Ise, I cannot read that, but can the application be filed by the lawyer only, or does the applicant need to be there for sure? You need to be there generally. Honestly, I'm not sure if a lawyer could file it on your behalf, because we've never done it this way. We've always been there. First, we're not lawyers, but we have not been there, or we have been there with our clients, not without them. But I honestly don't think you can, or a lawyer can submit it on your behalf. You can definitely have a power of attorney for the lawyers to like represent you during the whole process. So then the ministry would talk with you, but it would kind of also be a bit weird to submit the application on behalf of someone. So even if it was possible, I would probably not do that. But I'm not sure 100%. That's an interesting question. I don't have an answer for that. Okay, no more questions about citizenship. Děkuji. That's so weird that it translates into Czech. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. If you wish, get in touch and I will connect you to the lawyers we work with. And they will definitely be able to answer this question, or I can find out from them. So just get in touch and I'll be happy to find out. Okay. How is continuous residence assessed in practice, especially time spent outside of the Czech Republic for citizenship? Well, there are a couple things. As I mentioned during the video, you have to prove that you have actually been living here or how much you have been traveling. And then there are some rules for how long you can be outside. And that generally works the way that you can be outside for a pretty long time. And as long as you come back for at least one day, then it counts. It sometimes can be pretty difficult to prove, but generally what we've done in the past, for example, is that if you have a bank statement where there is one payment done by your card in the Czech Republic, that could potentially work as proven that you came back. So there is a specific like count in time, but then there is kind of another perspective that's the integration into the Czech society. So even if it can work the way that you leave for most of the month and then you come back just for one day and then you leave again for a month, you come back here for a day, you leave for a month, then you come back for a day, and you can do it this way and then you can still qualify for the citizenship. The question is if that would really prove that you've been integrated into the society and that you actually want to live in the Czech Republic if you spend most of the time outside. So yeah, there are a couple things that go together. What's the best way to show integration into Czech society if you're single? It depends on your situation. Depends on your situation. Generally, those are like being active in some Czech things, let's say. So if you have Czech friends and they could write some letters vouching for you and explain. It also kind of depends on how you write the request for the citizenship and how you also write the CV, because how you word it and what you put there, like even if you put there that you regularly go for mushrooming, that already shows that you at least know about mushrooming and that potentially you might go. And it's one of many steps that can influence that. But usually something you can prove is good. So if you're part of some sports club, or if you, again, we had a client who organizes one of the big markets for foreigners. And that's also a good thing because you are actually bringing people together. You're doing something for the society. So it can be partially shown through your business. For example, if you have a trade license or if you own a company and the company does something which might be beneficial for the Czech Republic. Or potentially even if you studied Czech studies, at the university or something like that. It depends on your specific situation. So we would need to kind of speak with you to see what we could use. But anything that will connect you to the Czech culture and show that you are actually interested in your surroundings and the Czech Republic in general. So it might be many different things, but usually the sports club or some it's kind of difficult to explain in English for me, but it's a kind of a typical Czech thing that after I don't know if you know Hanspalka, for example. That's like a small soccer which is there is some competition. They have different levels and usually go with friends, and it's kind of like a Czech thing where you go and just play once a week or twice a week, just basically to get thirsty for a beer. And that's a good way. Or if you're part of some other, you might be in an orchestra, for example, or be part of something similar. So depends on what actually you do. We had one older couple. No, was it couple? Yeah, but I only spoke with the guy, but they were a couple, and they lived in a small village outside of Prague, where the government wanted to build like the nuclear waste silo or whatever, like where they dig into the mountain and then they put all the nuclear waste there. And they were very active in protesting against that, because they bought a house there and they didn't want to have like a nuclear waste deposit there. So they were very active and they were going to all the protests, and they became to know the mayor of the town very well. So then the mayor was able to write a recommendation letter for them. So this is also a possibility. So anything like that, hopefully that gave you some idea. Vojta Kocourek, ahoj, ahoj Vojtíku. Okay guys, so thank you very much for being here today. And as I mentioned, I will now be going to the joiners section. So if you're a joiner, I'll be happy to answer all your questions in the live stream, which I will start just in 1 minute in the joiner section. And otherwise, I will see you again Thursday, Monday until the end of the world, including this Thursday, which will be like Christmas Thursday, but I will do a live stream for you anyway. See you guys. Good night.